Alright folks, it's time to do Ask Me Anything, that is AMA video for this coming summer. Passing summer actually. Another thing is, I made a couple of AMA videos during the spring, and I always, with these AMA videos, kind of encourage you to ask more questions which I hope to answer. And you made actually quite a list of interesting questions during the spring, so I've gathered most of them, if not all, in this particular video. I mean, autumn is just one step away, so it's time to do the summer AMA before we're actually living in the fall season. Roughly 14 questions, which some include some sub questions as well. So I'm just hanging this Word file here so you can pretty much see what's going on, which questions are about to be asked next. I'm going to read those questions obviously to make your life a little bit easier and then reply them to the best of my abilities. Now the first question is, what do you do in your spare time? Now this is a difficult question which I need a little bit of a sip of coffee. I do have a lot of hobbies. I do have a family, I do have a day job, which obviously take quite a bit of my daytime, and I try to sleep 8 hours a day because, you know, well, powerlifting and sleep, they go kind of hand in hand. So what do I do when I actually have free time for myself? Well, I guess my most loved hobby would be related to music. That is doing these videos, for example, reviewing music. They sometimes go hand in hand during my day job time. I also play in my own bands, but I guess this is something that you already know. I do powerlifting roughly 4 times a week. I do practice self-defense and other martial arts, but currently more reality-based self-defense. I do play games, mostly on PlayStation 4, secondarily on my Xbox One, sometimes on my Nintendo Switch, and now I have a working PC computer thanks to Jim's PC store. So I try to play games. Then I also have this hobby with my old buddies playing traditional pen and paper role-playing games, which I have done since late 80s, so more than 30 years now. And that's, I guess, pretty much of that. Then I also do some random stuff. I mean, I could go, you know, on a boat trip. I could watch some movies. I try to do movie reviews, TV series reviews, and all kind of stuff. So I guess there's a lot of my plate, but mostly powerlifting, playing games, and doing my own music. I guess that's the most of it. 2. Other than metal, are you into hardcore? Well, not in particular. I mean, there are some good bands like Terror coming from hardcore scene, but mostly, I don't know why. I mean, I do love the aggressiveness of the aggression of hardcore. I like the kind of in-your-face mentality, but sometimes, I mean, most of the times, I don't feel like I am kind of bound to go in that direction. I never kind of like punk. I don't dislike punk, but I mean musically it's not my cup of tea, and hardcore is so kind of close to punk music that it's not really speaking to me, so to say. So I could say I only like some exceptions. Same pretty much applies to grindcore or death grind bands. I mean, some bands are like really good, but most of them not really for me. 3. Cherry Mate, you look great for your age. Thank you, whoever you are. What is your skincare regime? I think I already answered this. Drinking multi drinks, whiskey and beer, and also doing powerlifting. That's good for your health. Do that. You should do a video where you talk about powerlifting training regime. I could do this on Rauta Beyond channel, where I try to put these non-metal topics nowadays, including gaming, powerlifting, and other topics. But mostly I have been doing 531 program by Jim Wendler, who is, by the way, a real metalhead also. By the way, he's a really strong guy, but he also has like nice anecdotes related to metal. Like at some point, he basically asked the trainers, are you Metallica or are you Darkthrone? You can pretty much Google it up. You couldn't make that up. He has really good powerlifting programs. I totally recommend going to that direction, and not because he's a metalhead, but because he knows what he's talking about. He has proven his strength and abilities by doing his own results. So I could talk about that in case you are interested, but if not, well, it's totally okay. Just let me know if you want me to do a video. This is just one request, but if you have more than just one guy asking the same, sure, why not? 5. I have to know, what race/class did you play in World of Warcraft? Well, my main character was undead rogue, because I mean I have this weird passion for things of undead. I mean it has been going for so long through a different kind of games. There's certain kind of perversion or obsession with things of undead, be it like real life myths or mythologies, be it in the games, so be it undeads like skeletons, zombies, mummies, liches, all kind of crazy creatures that are not dead but are not living either. The same applies to some movies and themes in games which I also like. The topic of undead. It might be zombie infestation or something went wrong, like kind of a Frankenstein monster, be it vampires. And I don't mean the gothic kind of a sweet vampires that kiss and make love, but I mean those brutal stuff that actually drink the blood of the innocent or whatever, like kind of a Dracula stories and all that stuff. So yeah, undead was my kind of stuff, and my secondary character was actually undead priest. From that onward, I started to play like orc, shaman, and troll, mage, and stuff like that. So I was very much a horde player, and I still think if I would restart playing World of Warcraft, I would probably, my go-to race would be undead. I don't know if I would start a rogue again, but yeah, that stuff. 6. You mentioned Canadian black metal bands. Any particular bands you like? Well, there are quite a few bands which I've liked from the Canadian scene. In particular, some bands which I have also interviewed, like Deletier, Fortress, Monarch, of older bands, Frozen Shadows, The Sire, where Eric Sire does the vocals and I guess all the music. Those come to my mind first. Well, Blasphemy is pretty cool. But I guess I'm more towards this newer school, especially the metal noir québécois, that is the Quebec metal scene with the kind of a French feeling and melodies, certain kind of aggression with the very, very catchy and beautiful melodies. That is the stuff that I like most. So yeah, that would be my Canadian black metal go-to, Quebec scene in general. 7. Have you ever considered interviewing Revenge, and what did you think of the new song? This is actually when the song came out, before the actual whole album came out, but I could as well comment the album because I didn't review it. Now, I tried to interview Revenge when they were in my home city, playing at Turku Saatanalla Fest some 18 months ago. But it wasn't possible because Revenge doesn't do interviews at all. I mean, they haven't been doing interviews for like, I don't know, 15 plus years. So obviously I was out of the question right out of the bat. And what did I like or think about their new song? Well, I think it's pretty much the same stuff that Revenge and Conqueror has been doing like all the time. Very fast, chaotic, aggressive, in-your-face kind of stuff. And while younger Jerry was very much kind of a fan of this kind of stuff as well, nowadays I get kind of bored when there's nothing but chaos and aggression and fast forward. I kind of like that music which is more riff-driven, riff-oriented even. So this new Revenge album and the song, the kind of a premiere song which came out, like, okay, it's pretty okay, but it really didn't get me going. Maybe it would have grown on me if I had given it multiple spins, but at least, I mean, I'm always constantly overloaded with these review albums as such, so either you convince me right away with a couple of songs or there's no deal. So never got back to listening to the new Revenge album. So I guess we could nowadays say not too much my cup of tea, but I totally get why some people like or even worship the band. 8. What do I think about the war metal genre? Specifically, what do you think about it existing? Is it necessary or are there too many subgenres out there? Well, yes and no. I mean, different subgenres are handy tool when they are used like in moderate fashion. That is, we all know there are plenty different black metal styles, and I have been trying to make this video for years about the different styles just to give a newer ones, newbies if you will, a kind of a helpful video. But I mean old people or elite people would just get pissed about that idea. But yeah, I think there are very many subgenres which are just useless. But then again, kind of a basic subgenres are actually very helpful to people to figure out what kind of music we're talking about. I mean, even if we're talking about music such as doom metal, we can pretty much divide into different categories. Are we talking about funeral doom? Are we talking about traditional doom, epic doom, and so forth? And same thing with black metal, which I think is more versatile. I mean, with doom, it's kind of a given that the music is slow tempo, so there's not like fast doom or anything like that. But when we're talking about black metal, we can have these kind of really slow tempo black metal. We can have mid-tempo stuff, very fast tempo one. There are black metal which are more satanic in nature in lyrics, which are more political, some are more melodic, and yada yada yada. It's very complicated. So I think some necessary adjectives are useful as tools as well. So yeah, I guess most of those genres, at least those ones which are more bigger, are useful and needed. And about war metal, I think war is a really fascinating topic, and as such, I don't think war metal should be only, like restricted to be this chaotic, fast forward, in your face kind of a aggression that is blasphemy worship, what so many bands are doing, but more about these bands which are kind of related, but not necessarily related to kind of a traditional black metal, which could also flirt with death metal. I mean, Bolt Thrower is, in my opinion, in so many ways, like the epitome of war metal, because all their lyrics and albums are basically about war, but they have nothing to do with black metal as such. So I guess it's kind of a misleading to just think that war metal is about, playing fast, playing chaotic, and kind of a mushy sound. But I think it's a kind of a genre that has been, set in stone in so many ways. So I guess it kind of justifies its existence. Number 9, what are your views on LGBT metalheads who have faced discrimination from the LGBT community just for being into metal? I think it's kind of a paradox. I mean, in general, lesbian, gay, bi, trans metal people, I mean, if they were not into metal, they would be very much like seeing these precious, unique snowflakes and all that stuff. So if they suddenly enter metal and people start to discriminate them just because they're metal, I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous. They're basically just, doing the same which they are trying to fight. That is, I mean, personally, I don't think any people should be discriminated at all. I mean, obviously, there is no single people on earth, I think, who doesn't discriminate anything. Every one of us has certain kind of prejudice and attitude problems with certain other type of people. But let's say, for example, that in general, LGBT people are facing a lot of problems from people who are more normal ones, if you will. And as such, if these people then go to metalhead, I mean, they shouldn't be getting the shit from their own community, because after all, they are just trying to get that shit removed, all these discrimination removed from the other people. So why in the hell they would be punishing their own just because? I mean, it's kind of a paradox. So yeah, it's kind of a sick, but people are. 10, my top 3 favorite movies. Now this is a difficult thing because first of all, my all-time favorite movie would be Apocalypse Now. But then I feel like I should be saying Star Wars trilogy, the first one, and also Lord of the Rings trilogy. I mean, I'm a kind of a geek guy, so I like fantasy, I like sci-fi, I like these epic stories. And I don't want to use epic in basically everyday life, but these stories aren't really epic. They're like big movies about kind of crusades and wars and stuff like that. But I mean, you really can't say trilogy as like one movie. So if I were to remove that out of the equation, I really would have me think like, what else? Well, one movie that comes to my mind right out of Apocalypse Now would be Pulp Fiction. I'm a big Tarantino fan, and Pulp Fiction in my books is his best movie. One of my all-time favorite movies. But then it would get difficult, like, what else? What else? Because, I mean, there are really, really superior movies which just, talk to me in the sense of being 10 out of 10. And I would probably have to check out on my IMDb account, to check out what I have actually reviewed 10 out of 10, because I really can't think of too many. So I would guess it could be the first Sin City movie. But then again, I kind of feel like it could be Conan the Barbarian and stuff like that. But I guess if those trilogies can't be included, which is kind of fair, I would say maybe Apocalypse Now, Pulp Fiction, and Sin City. Can we settle with that? 11. Just wondering if you have a favorite game console. Not really. Like I said, I am more about the content. I don't care so much about platform. I mean, different consoles have different, settings and parameters. Like some game consoles might have better, certain kind of options to do this and that, or better game controller. But in my books, I mean, the content is the king. That's what pretty much Bill Gates said once upon a time, and I am really going with that one. So in my opinion, there is no the best console in the world. I mean, in so many ways, I guess, technically speaking, I guess Xbox One X is the most powerful console. It could be the best because I like Xbox controller more than I actually like PlayStation 4, though they're really, really close to each other. But especially this Elite controller, really good. But when it comes to console, in terms of how much time I'm spending with certain kind of a console, it should be PlayStation 4 Pro, because that's what I'm using like 90% of the time when I'm gaming, if not even more. But I mean, each game consoles have the kind of place and time. For example, if I'm traveling, it would be this Nintendo Switch, which I haven't touched for months, but I think it's a great piece of electronics, great piece of equipment. So to answer these questions short way, no favorite console. Games matter. How was life in the army, Rauta? This is question number 12. I was in the military service for about 4 months in 1995. And like a friend of mine, or friends actually, I think, compared it back in the days, it's like a kindergarten for adult people. And adult, I mean quotation marks, because I mean, when you enter Finnish military service, you're roughly 19 years old. Between 18 or 20 for most cases. But some are older. Like, for example, there was one guy from university who was like closer to like 27. And in his eyes, we were all a bunch of kids. There was some guy who was like volunteering army before the actual mandatory service, and he was like 17. And you can even imagine the difference between 17 and 27. And it didn't take much of time before this guy, this older guy, decided to call like, okay, I quit. And I think he went to do his rest of his service as in the so-called civil service, where I spent actually some 6 months as well. So military service was kind of a fun, but also kind of a boring time, because whatever you could talk during weekends was whatever happened during the week at the military service. So it basically kind of screwed your mind for a bit. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't actually a fan of it. So all in all, I kind of envied my friends who were at the civil service, because they were smoking weed, dating girls, having normal routines with their day job, whereas I was in the army, marching and doing silly things. I mean, there were fun things like throwing grenades or learning about napalm, stuff like that, seeing real guns. But in general, army was kind of like kindergarten for adults. I don't have any bad against it still after these 25 years, but I mean, it is what it is. And no more coffee before last 2 questions. 13. Do I consider death metal to be worth categorized by a certain country or a geography-oriented territory, who can less or more put something unique to their styles? Yes. Do you consider that most death metal artists should try to approach more mythology in their music? Maybe some nature, mountains, how are so big, mysterious, putting out some doom death rally heavy, or do you think it's better that death metal should remain more traditional with murder, gore, chaos and all that stuff? Now, very complicated question in so many ways, because actually more than one question in the same. First of all, I do think there are kind of a geographical, kind of a like country made lines in death metal. For example, Swedish death metal certainly has the kind of a typical sound, especially if we're talking about 1990s death metal versus the so-called Florida sound, where I mean bands like Morbid Angel Obituary, D-Side, Cannibal Corpse and stuff like that. I mean, Cannibal Corpse didn't start there, but let's face it, they moved there quite early on. So certainly different kind of geography seems to affect bands. Pretty much the same as in black metal. For example, Norwegian black metal is a thing. We all know that. Swedish black metal is a thing. Finnish black metal, so forth. And also Finnish death metal was kind of a more or less having a kind of own style. I mean, there were differences if you were talking about Lubricant or if we were talking about Abhorrence. I mean, back in the days when we were talking about early 90s or even late 80s, things were not that different. It's more like you have this one seed, or a few of them, but they're like all from the same tree or plant. And then you have these different seeds, and then they start growing and they start mutating. That's pretty much biology. And the same kind of thing which happens in biology, well, where animals or plants or mushrooms, shrooms, they mutate. It's kind of like something that happens over time. It takes a hell of a lot of time. I mean, you don't just mutate over a generation. I mean, not big anyway. But over multiple generations, it happens. And basically all this same thing happens in music, in my opinion. But it's just so much quicker. I mean, between 10 years, between 2 years even, things can change a lot. I mean, even if you take like a look at the early death metal bands or black metal bands and compare what happened in 10 or 5 years, things started to change quite quickly. So definitely by that I mean, definitely bands change. But in the early stages, they usually kind of remind each other. So there are lots of similarities in the beginning. But when things start to flourish, grow, big, mutate, and all that stuff, progress, evolve, things change. And as such, it's harder to kind of categorize them by country or geography-oriented territory, like it was said here. But still, I mean, there are lots of death metal bands nowadays, from Sweden, for example, which kind of try to sound so much like the bands that started like early 90s or mid 90s. And as such, it seems like people are intentionally or unintentionally copying these ideas. So definitely there's some territory-driven thing or things happening in death metal as well. So yeah, it could be categorized as such, but also, in my opinion, death metal is not bound to only violence and gore and war and, you know, murders, serial killers and all that stuff. It's kind of old-fashioned way to think about that, but then even if you think about bands which are like satanic death metals, D-Side being one of the spearheads, or more occult things going weird like, I don't know, Morbid Angel, or what Death was doing, including all kind of societal things or things of philosophical nature. I mean, Death is not just bound to that. Even if bands like Cannibal Corpse and so many other bands in death metal in the traditional way are all about gore and violence and deaths and murders or torture-based killers. You know, so many different styles, and in my opinion, that's how it should be. I don't know if death metal should be something like mountains or nature, like so many black metal bands seem to be, but I mean, why not? In the end, what matters is how much you want to limit yourself. So all I care, you can do metal about computer games, or you can do death metal about vegan diet. I don't think you should, but I mean, it's all yours. If you want to make a thrash metal band about construction business or mafia, go and do it. It's all to be taken. And the last, most complicated question is this. Who is Cherry? Who is this guy? I mean, come on, look at why is this bald-headed guy talking so much? Why he's making videos every goddamn day? Where to start? I'm 45 years old now. I got into metal when I was roughly 6. Listening to my first band was Iron Maiden. But it took me quite a few years before I actually started to listen to metal. All kinds of heavy metal, you know, Kiss, Wasp, Twisted Sister, that kind of stuff. And later on I started to develop interest towards extreme metal, which kind of happened in my teenage years after listening to bands like, you know, Metallica, Panther and all that stuff. And because I was reading, obviously, reviews of other people back in the days, especially in my teenage years, and saw that there were so bad reviewers in Finnish scene, you know, reviewing death metal and black metal and thrash metal, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna do it better. I don't know if I'm doing it better. Well, actually, I do if I'm comparing this one certain person, which I won't mention here. Yeah, I think I'm doing it better. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm far from it. There are a lot better people around, but too many people either quit too soon, or they're too lazy, they're too busy, or they just kind of get fed up with it. So what I wanted to do is wanted to expand your writing the interviews. I mean, I've been writing interviews for roughly almost 20 years now. So a few years ago, I decided to go, okay, let's do it on a video. Let's do interviews on video. Let's do these reviews. Let's do opinion videos. And later on, of course, things expanded, including these AMA questions, our Discord service, later on game streaming where I would talk metal with people. They're still happening. In case you want to just join one of the streams, go ahead. And things just, expanded. So suddenly I was not a metalhead listening to metal. Not only a metalhead playing my own metal, doing lyrics, vocals, playing guitar, doing my own music. I wanted to write about music as well. I wanted to talk about music. I wanted to interview these bands nobody else seems to be interviewing, especially in video. So that's Cherry, a guy who is kind of so passionate about certain things that it's almost like obsession. And metal it's my drug, really. It's the thing where I go to. It's music that gets me relaxed. It's a music that gets me pumped, worked out. When I drive a car, when I'm, walking around, when I'm at the gym, basically whatever I'm doing, I want to listen to music. Well, obviously when I'm not, when I'm sleeping, I usually don't listen to music. When I play games, watch movies, TV, usually I don't listen to music. But there's certain kind of games where the game's own soundtrack is not that important. Say like Civilization games. So I might be playing Civilization here and then just putting my amp on and inserting a CD or LP and keep it in a spin while I play. I did that a lot with World of Warcraft. So I'm a gamer, I'm a powerlifter, I'm a martial arts enthusiastic, I'm an all kinds of weird shit guy. I like to drink beers, I like to drink whiskey, I like to have sex, and I like music, wherever. And if it's good music, even better. Does that explain or answer to your question? I hope. If not, there are plenty of videos already out which explain what I am, where I have come from, and all that stuff. Probably not the video where I'm going to, because I really don't know. I don't foresee the future and all that stuff. And oh yeah, I love coffee. I love a lot of coffee. With these questions now answered, should you have more questions, feel free to drop me a message in the description box. I will get back to you. Or maybe come talk to the Discord, ask questions right there, or send me a private message on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, in case you don't want to have your questions out in the open, public questions. But, don't waste your try to trolling me. You might succeed, but it's still a waste of time. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your questions, especially you people who actually made these questions. Without you, there wouldn't be this video to answer these interesting questions. I hope you will have a good day. And first of all, most of all, listen to some good music. Enjoy it. Be passionate about it. And make your own music if you can. That's all. Bye-bye. Take care. See ya.